Welcome back, YouTube. This is your host, Aaron Yoon, coming at you from New York City, but I am in Queens today with dear friends of mine, clients who have become great friends of mine over the past couple of years. We have Nixie and Rafael from Nixie's Coffee. You can tell by their branded t-shirts. We just got done doing a live in the backyard. Or recording. I helped them record a YouTube video, so you should be able to check out a link for that. I'll put that in the end card and in the description below this video if you want to check that out. So thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. We're
it
excited.
is a very hot day today in New York City, and he took the trip out here sweating to film, and we filmed in the backyard, by the way, but we just couldn't take it, so we brought it inside, and this is why we're actually having a cold brew coffee because it's just way too hot. Which, by the way, Aaron, how is it?
It's awesome. I'm a big fan. I'm a little bit of a coffee snob, not gonna lie, and so I don't just try anyone's coffee, but this is, and I don't just recommend anybody's coffee, but this is definitely. If I can help it, the only coffee I want to be drinking. Nixie's cold brew, perfect. And I learned how to do it today. I didn't know. You know what? I always made cold brew by taking hot coffee and sticking it in the refrigerator. That was my. I mean, for a coffee snob, I'm not very good at knowing the different ways of how to make coffee.
Well, coffee snob and coffee connoisseur are two different people. Yeah. So like,
I'm definitely the snob.
Yeah, you're the snob that can tell by the taste, the aroma, and the.
I know what I like.
Right, you know what you like.
Yeah.
And we defined ourselves as coffee lovers.
Yeah.
So we're not so much snobs, but we're coffee lovers.
Coffee.
So when we find coffee that we love, which was our story, then we run with it.
Admittedly, I am not the one that called myself a coffee snob. I've been called a coffee snob, so that's what I figured that I was. But I like lover better. It definitely sounds more. It sounds nicer.
It's different though.
It is different. What is the difference between coffee lover and coffee snob?
Well, coffee snob. It's more, you're more of a critic, right? Like you taste the coffee
I know what I like
and you
and
be
I know
like,
what I don't like. Yeah.
This is crap.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and so you know good quality coffee and
not drinking that again, you know.
Yeah, and you're after. So a coffee lover is not so much of a coffee connoisseur, may not know too much about the technicalities and like the science behind coffee.
The notes.
Yeah. And so and neither does a coffee snob, but the difference between us is that we're just more like, oh wait, let me actually try it.
Yeah. Actually, do it. Yeah.
Wow, I'm in love with this coffee. So I may not be exactly defining the distinction, but there is a distinction in my
I'm definitely critical, and that's kind of the thing that I think that's just an innate part of my personality. Ever since I was a kid, I'd always like question stuff and like criticize things in hopes to making things better. So I do relate to the critic element of it, and that's what I kind of when I started looking at the Wall Street kind of industry when I first joined a hedge fund, and I looked at what our like not with I was working for millionaires and billionaires, right? But I am not a millionaire or a billionaire. I'm a thousandaire, you know? Like so like thousandaires think of money differently than the billionaires. And I got to see that firsthand, and I started raising like a lot of questions and being a critic, being like a wealth snob, if you will, right? And being like, how come they have access to these tools and knowledge and education like as millionaires and billionaires that thousandaires never get? Like I never got that kind of stuff in school. So that was the whole mission. That's what this whole channel is. It's not just about coffee, although I do love this coffee, and I appreciate you guys hanging out. But
I think that's a great feature to have.
What do you mean?
That you become critical, or like you can critique things and really do your due diligence when it comes to picking out you know, especially when it comes to money and having your background. I think that's one of the main things that you have that. Can I say like validation? Like and I mean be missing the word, but it's good for your resume, so to speak. So like, and even though we didn't know that when we met Aaron,
when we met him,
Aaron. We had no clue you were in the hedge fund industry.
But we're happy.
Yeah, I mean, having known that afterward we're like, oh, that's why he knows so much about this. Like, that's why he's able to help us.
Yeah, because we had no idea about the stock market. Like, Nixie and I were just in the middle of, do we want to learn about the stock market, or we just want to like put it somewhere? So
you wanted to learn.
I wanted to learn.
I didn't.
She didn't want to learn.
I had no care in the world, but yeah, I was afraid. I was like, do we go in like full blown? You know, there's obviously like horror stories out there, and at the end of the day, I think it's just a lack of education and a lack of awareness of what it really is. And I love that you're doing this with your channel.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That you're really like creating that awareness and teaching people like what really is the stock market about and how it really works, so that I think the element of fear can kind of like disappear. And moreover, I don't know that they know, but we're now friends, and I know you said that in the beginning, but it all started with we met
at a seminar.
You came to one of our events that Randy and I were putting on together.
Yes,
that's how we met. Yeah.
And then you were able to like really get us onto this
on board,
into this new world, basically.
Very smooth. Right, very smoothly, like we just went on board.
Are we flattering you too much?
No, that's fine. That's fine. I don't.
I was like, stop it.
It's an honest thing. So
yeah, I could be like, oh, stop, but keep going.
No, but in all honesty, I think having somebody like you really makes a big difference. Because again, we don't know. Yeah. You're able to provide that guidance that people should like want. I think a lot of people want that, and then we've become actually like family.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's grown.
It's COVID time, and we're in your home. You're letting me in your home without a mask on. So like that just kind of that should already kind of be a testimony as to how close we've become, and I'm so grateful for that too, because now I know what one brand of coffee is, right? But speaking of horror stories, did you guys hear? There was this one kid, like 20-year-old kid, who committed. Yes. You saw that article? He committed suicide after seeing his Robinhood account drop down to minus 730,000, I believe. Right, and
it was 730.
It was 730,000, and I didn't read the entirety of the article because I was like when I saw just the headline alone had me a little bit distraught, and I couldn't pay attention. You know, like when you read something and you're just looking at words, it's not sinking in because you're thinking about something else. I was just thinking and focusing on the tragedy that is, because this is a 20-year-old kid, right, and you know. Like now more than ever, it's never been easier to get involved in the stock market. You literally just download an app, connect your bank account, and you're in. You're in. Like you don't need any education. Just like go play, right? And the thing is, so he's like not even old enough to gamble, right?
Yeah.
But he's old enough to trade, right? And he didn't really. Obviously, he didn't.
So is that the thing? You can be 18 years old and then start.
I mean, there are ways.
Account?
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically, in essence, right?
Yeah, I mean there are ways. There are tons of kids who are under 18, and with parental like permission, or they jump on their parents' Robinhood account and they like to tinker around and you know figure out how to make money on their phones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's like, while I really appreciate that with technology, we're getting access to anything and everything we want, like just through our phones. We're dating from our phones. Right, we're watching movies on our phones. We're buying or shopping on our phones. We're doing everything on our phones. Why not the stock market, right?
Yeah.
We're ordering, everything.
But I think this is one case where it's like really dangerous. Like if you can really fall down a really slippery slope.
That's exactly what I thought when I saw that. I was like, why? If he had iFlip, if he would have used that app.
That's the first thing that came to my mind. Yeah. I'm like, to think that could have been prevented with a better platform, such as the one we use. Yeah. I mean, literally, that was the first thing that came to mind because I was really heartbroken. The dude is only 20 years old, and would he have just gotten a better system, then he may have still been with us, and that's really horrible. And I think that's partly what has brought us together even more is that it's our integrity, like, is so in tune with what we're doing, with what you do, and with our companies and our businesses and our growth. And the truth of the matter is that it's all about you. It's about the customer. It's not even about us. It's like, how can we help you grow? How can we help you have a better coffee experience? How can we help you in so many ways? And I went with this because I'm not trying to be a stock market expert, as I'm sure this poor guy did too. Yeah, he definitely figured Robinhood is like a signal sender, right? Where
Robinhood is a trading app where you can just you can trade from it.
Right, but doesn't it have like algorithmic intelligence?
Robinhood?
Yeah.
No.
No.
Mm-mm.
Are you kidding me?
No.
Because I know the one we use has AI, but it also does it for you, which can help you sleep sound at night and not wake up to a surprise, which is what happened with us.
But my understanding with him, the system like totally shut down.
Was it? I mean, there was a couple of things at play there. First of all, he didn't have $730,000 to even lose.
No.
There are ways to essentially trade in the market with borrowed money, right? And the more money you have, so like what he ended up having was, I think he had $16,000 in legitimate cash or something like that to his own name in his account. Okay. But you're able to borrow and trade as if you have way more than that.
Wow.
Right? But if you do that, the risk is you could potentially lose many times more than what you have in your account. Okay. Because things went... So, like, imagine you borrowed money to buy a house, and then the house burnt down, and you have no insurance on it, and now you owe even more money than you had anticipated because you have to pay off more things than just the mortgage payment, right? Okay. So essentially what he was doing was trading on margin, which is borrowed money. That margin, like trading, that's like gambling with borrowed money. You know, like you go to a casino and they're like, hey, if you have no money, just go to this window over here, go to the cash advance window. It's only like 25 or 35% interest, right? But people walk up there and borrow money from the casino all the time. Yeah. It's kind of the same thing what you're doing with margins. So it's just one of those things you have to be very, very careful with. But I think the tendency for most people is it's like, oh, if I borrow this and I win, I can win I can win like
I can double it.
Yeah,
so
I can double it, triple it, 10x it, 20x it. And it's like the get-rich-quick mentality kind of takes over, even though you don't mean for it to.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I mean, if there's one thing I've learned is that if you're going into the stock market, unless it's like day trading or something, you're going in for the long haul. You cannot go into the stock market and expect to make a weekly paycheck from it. I mean, you probably potentially can, but that's not what... At least not what we see it as. It's more for retirement. Like, let it sit there without taking such big losses, without letting it sit in the bank where it's just collecting dust and potentially even like losing because of inflation. That I learned from him. I learned some stuff. But yeah, no, I mean, and then I lost my train of thought, but I was getting somewhere with this.
What the kid was trading was options, and options is not a long-term investment kind of game.
Yes, that's right.
It is a day trading kind of game, or like or what we call a swing trading. Swing trade is where you don't trade every day. Maybe you trade like once a week or so, maybe twice a week. You hold it for a week or two, and there's with options, there's such a thing as expirations, right? And so you have to constantly be paying attention. Whereas, for the most part, meet people who are investing in their 401ks or IRAs or whatever. They just want to put money in a place where it'll grow over the long term and not really pay attention to it, right? That's the kind of set it and forget it, peace of mind mentality that we're looking for, right? And that's the best place to start. Everyone's got to start there, I feel like. Yeah. But this 20-year-old kid who I didn't think even if he was in school, he definitely didn't finish school yet. He hadn't gotten into real life kind of situation where you learn to save a paycheck or a portion of the paycheck. He didn't really have any of those kinds of money habits built in yet, and is just at that point. It's just like I don't wish to speak ill of the dead, but the behavior is more similar to gambling at that point. Okay. And I think that it's a tragedy. So like I never thought of what I do as something that could save a life, right? I never thought that teaching people on like how to minimize risk and understand how the stock market works, so this thing, what happened to this kid, doesn't happen to you, right? And this kind of thing drove him to suicide. And you know what the real tragedy is? The way that the accounts are settled, he might not have had to pay all $730,000. The way that it was settling, right? And there are ways that you can kind of settle that for way less. Obviously, he would have probably been, all 16 of his original money would have been lost, probably. I'm sure. And then some. But like the emotional impact of him thinking, oh my God, and to think that he had such little support structure, to think that the only way out was to kill himself is like, this is the tragedy of a lack of financial literacy and education which is for the young people. Yeah,
but that's so like a huge problem. Not a problem, but it's more.
It's more common than you think.
Exactly, the financial illiteracy, right?
For sure.
That was us not so long ago. We really didn't have very little to no idea as to really how this world works, and now we just can count on Aaron.
We luckily we bumped into you.
the details and stuff. But I think most people don't have that, and there's people out there that could be making so much more, that could be growing their money so much more, and because they have that fear potentially, or they're skeptics, which he's a total skeptic. I love that about us, because we balance each other very well and complement each other, I guess. And so as a couple, I don't know that we said that, but we are married.
Husband and wife.
Yeah, and we're also married in business. Yes. So, but
well, look at your mom with her, whatchamacallit?
Yes. My mom, so
she has the what is it?
She's in her like 401k account thing, and it performed so poorly, and this is my fault. They were away, so there was very little that I could do during that time to have them. But I'd been talking to them for a while to let them know about the platform we're now using, so that we can transfer their funds, and it was partly because I didn't want to like do all that stuff, and I didn't even think to just ask
tell me.
I didn't want to bother you.
sometimes it's like, oh,
honestly, what bothers me more is when people lose money that they don't have to be losing.
Yeah.
That's what bothers me the most, because that is my backstory. Like, I know you guys have heard the story about me before, but you know, for people watching, I'll just give a short version of it again. Like, my family was super rich at one point, right? Back in Korea, when they were still in Korea, they came to America, and the short version of the story is they lost it all.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how do you lose? Like, so like for everybody at home, and I know you guys, and this is where we've connected so well. It's like, it doesn't matter how much you make or how much you have at any one time, right? It matters what you do with it. How much money you keep is what matters. How much money you grow is what matters. And so you look at the typical lottery winner, the typical not the superstars who have a good staff, but like the regular average professional athlete that you don't normally recognize. They usually go broke after their career is over.
Yeah.
Right? Because they make their tens of millions and somehow they end up losing it. And it's like, how do you do that so much? Well, you don't have a good idea of like how much money to, plant over here for it to grow and sustain your long-term future. So the 401k is the same thing. I'm a 401k snob, right? If we're gonna continue with that analogy, it just doesn't make sense, because how did your portfolio do this year?
Oh, it did really well.
Right?
First we took a little tiny bump. It was like a little bump in the road.
It was a tiny bump. But we looked at your mom's, and she took a big,
and then when we look
bump
around and talk to everyone else, and like really actually look at the news,
they had
people
had a dive.
Yeah.
They dove in.
Yeah.
And so
I was
we're
like,
oh my god! And I think we're having this conversation in such a perfect time, no pun intended, but like it is the right time, because this is a big wake up call, I think, for so many people, that we have people reach out to us directly, because we've been talking about this. Yeah, even not knowing so much about it, we're just like, you need to do whatever we're doing right now. You need to be in it, because it's just it has all the great features. It's got the algorithmic and intelligence, even though like most people can't understand that. But I knew in my heart that this is the right place to be, and now this was like a huge proof of it. And we have people reaching out to us.
We've had various.
We've had multiple instances, but this is the big one that everyone
is paying
attention to.
That's true.
Big one.
Yeah, this is
COVID-19,
the one.
COVID-19 was the
Yeah. I mean, if
unexpected.
If most boomers would have just like hopped onto this right before all these like tragedies are happening, they would have been in a much better place. And going back to what you were talking about with the middle class, the people being at risk of like going broke, I didn't know what, like, when you see like the older folks working in like a McDonald's or a Walmart or like these places, I thought they just wanted to do something with their life.
They were bored.
Honestly, they were bored. Honest to God, like I had no clue.
I thought the same thing too.
Yeah, little did we know is that they just don't have enough to retire, so they have to take these jobs. And they were probably professionals in the
once
prior
in a lifetime,
job.
Teachers or whatever.
And consider the types of jobs that they're signing up for is like cashier, waiter, or retail sales clerk at like a mall or something. All the jobs that are gonna be stripped away with a combination of the pandemic and AI taking over everything. One of the most common jobs for women between 40 to 60 years old is call center jobs, where they're taking call support, like tech support or customer support for banks and different companies. Yeah. Right. All of that is like AI can handle about 40 to 50% of that now, right? So that's cutting into their need for humans on the other side. Obviously, I think we're still at the point where I still want a human on the other side when I call those. Yeah, we're still at that level, but like
the younger generation probably won't be.
But sometimes it's like, the AI that talks to you first gets you to the human faster.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas long time ago it was like, oh, you talk to like a level 1 person, and they like route your call and stuff like that. You know. So a lot of the jobs that the older people that are applying for, they're going away too, and it doesn't look like that situation is getting any better. Right, it's not like, oh, we're improving the financial status of people who are approaching retirement.
Yeah,
it's actually going backwards, right? And so I mean, going back to a second for how you guys performed this year. You made it sound like it was just like a little speed bump. You're like, oh, that kind of hurt, right? But then you kept going. If going in a driving kind of sense is continuing to make gains and continuing to grow and make money, you kept going, right? I know that I did a video with Kelly, the CTO of iFlip the other day, and the free profile, the free Smartfolio is what we call them, right? The free Smartfolio is up 25% for the year.
Look at that. Wow.
Right?
That's awesome.
And so everyone else who is basically just tracking and just going up and down with the market is they've just now finally maybe broken even, like by a little. They're like, oh, finally. Oh, I finally 6 months later, or like four or 5 months later, I've broken even. Whereas the past the past 4 or 5 months for us, we're at least up 20%.
Yeah.
At least.
Absolutely.
Right? And so it's like, that's the difference. Like, you're happy that you're at break even. There are some of us, we're not bragging, but we're just saying we're inviting, right? Like, well, you could be.
No, I mean, this is not even like, we're not going to waste our time here just making a video to brag. I mean, we're enjoying
No, we stopped by my brother-in-law's today at Phillies, and he was telling me, like, he's happy with his portfolio.
Right.
And now he has more time to play with that. He's going to jump in and play a little bit more with iFlip.
For sure.
Yeah, he's super grateful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And but consider like everyone who didn't have that. So this is the way that I've been explaining, and you guys can use this metaphor as well when people ask. It's like investing in your typical 401k, your traditional IRA, what everybody else has out there, is kind of like driving with no seatbelt. When there's a crash, you're gonna get hurt real bad.
Straight to the hospital.
Like real bad. Like it's almost like there was a crash. COVID crash happened in February, and you've been in a coma, like recovering for the past 5 months, and now you just woke up.
But some would argue, because I've gotten this, that isn't that the way the stock market has always played? Like, you're supposed to let it just take the ride because you're just gonna come back up and
yes,
right, like that's usually what some people will say. Well, why use that if like that's just the nature of the stock market, because they don't believe that the stock market can
the nature of the stock market is like it's kind of like saying, are there crazy drivers out there on the road? Absolutely. Can we prevent them from rear-ending us or T-boning us when we're driving out on the road? Not exactly, right? There is such a thing as defensive driving. So we put on seatbelts.
So we're like,
this is an airbag.
We're Allstate. You're in good hands.
You just reminded me of that, because they have like the best commercials with like.
I love Allstate commercials.
You can't like prevent accidents. Like you can't foresee them. Just the same way that you can't foresee like
so you're in
the
good
crashes.
Hands, huh?
Yeah.
You're in good hands.
You're in good hands with Allstate. I love the commercials where I don't know the actor's name, but I recognize his face. But it's the one where he's like I'm your satellite on your roof in the middle of a thunderstorm, and I'm not installed properly, so I'm about to fall off the roof and land on top of your car and destroy your car, and then he dives and he into the car. He's like, you're not covered for this if you have crappy insurance, but if you have Allstate, you're covered. It is kind of the same thing, and actually Kelly does use the metaphor of it's like insurance.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I love this analogy, by the way, because this
is
something I can remember, and I think a lot of people will be able to relate to.
I use the seatbelt analogy because it works better for because I talk about how the journey to financial freedom is like a road trip, right? You need to you don't just hop in a car and drive when you want to take a road trip. There's prep work
Mm-hmm.
involved, right? When you want to take a road trip, and it's the same thing with the financial journey. Can you prevent, like when you're driving, can you prevent the crazy drivers out there from hitting you? You cannot, but that's why you wear the seatbelt. And if you're not wearing a seatbelt, it is just asking for more trouble when these crashes inevitably happen. So for us, we all had our seatbelts on, so we all felt like the little bump. I'm like, oof, that was
They tapped us in the back.
Yeah, like, oh, that was
continue going.
Yeah, it was scary for a moment, but then we kept going.
Yeah.
Like we were fine, right? That's why we're up 20-something% for the year.
We were fine, and I didn't have a sense of worriness.
Yeah,
I didn't have that sense because I remember the last time that
for
the car.
him to say that.
Yeah.
Well, what do you mean by last time?
The last time I think it was 2018. I think it was.
Yeah.
18, where
2018.
we had another
right?
bump as well. But there, I saw how the software worked. It just took my money, pulled it out, and held it till it was ready to jump back into the road again.
Yeah.
Right. So the same thing happened now, and I was like, I was chilling. I was chilling. I was relaxed. There was no sweats coming down my forehead with the way.
And that's a huge, like, for anyone who knows him, like I do, he's a huge worrier. Like he worries, and that's also part of the reason why. Like,
that's important. I mean,
of course.
For people like me that worry, I love the software. I'm in it. I love it. I love the how it works, how it performs.
I love it too, because it's nice to have a husband when he's not worried so much and like driving me crazy.
Yeah, no. So I mean, if you're the kind of person that stresses out over money, if you're the kind of person that stresses out over investing in the stock market because you feel like it is a stock market casino, a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
But you don't want to dedicate the time, energy, the blood, sweat, and tears that it's required to trade and handle it like a pro, then your next best bet is the AI software because it operates like a professional.
Yeah.
Right? It operates like the hedge fund manager who created it, who we all happen to be very close friends with. He's also a little bit of a coffee snob.
Yes,
Kelly.
Absolutely. He loved our coffee.
Well, we gotta send him some coffee.
Yeah,
we've been saying that for a while.
Yeah.
So we're all good friends here, and we like this message is going out to everybody watching.
But I think there's an important point. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but then you have somebody like you, so like you can easily just go and Google an AI, software or whatever, but you're still gonna have questions, like we did, and you're still gonna want a little bit of guidance at least to get started, right?
For sure.
Once you're started, boom, sealed, unless you want to like do more and whatnot. But that's where Aaron came into play for us. Is that I personally don't want to deal with a lot of the extra work that gets involved and that needs to be done. At least initially, and that's where. YouTube.
Yes, I mean if you want it, so make sure you hit subscribe to YouTube and hit the notification bell because we talk about all these types of questions. In order for you to really, I don't want anybody to do anything they don't feel comfortable doing. But I am offering like, hey, if you're gonna get on the road out there, are you gonna wear a seatbelt or are you not gonna wear a seatbelt? Right? Because that's the kind of thing that like the industry is promoting. Hey, no seatbelts required. You're supposed to just absorb the damage of a crash. That's the nature of the stock market. And
just break a couple of ribs.
You might slip into a coma for about a year or two, but that's normal.
That's part of it.
And your friends, the people who are like, isn't that how you're supposed to be? Like they've bought into this mentality. And so long as you believe that, there's no way you're going to think that this AI software is a good fit because there's a fee associated with it. It's not the app is free, But the upgraded version that we all have for our retirement accounts and for bigger money is there's a subscription cost to it, right?
Yeah.
And
which is chump change in comparison to what we've been shown. That really goes on that we're blinded to.
Compared to what you could have lost.
And that too.
Yeah. It's easy. It's easily
a lot more positive.
It pays for itself.
It does
very, very quickly.
For sure.
Right, in terms of what the traditional fees end up being and what you end up saving in terms of avoiding stock market crashes like in 18 and in 2020. But you have to feel comfortable doing it because at the end of the day is we want to have people like Ralphie who are like worriers. They're like, oh my God, money, stock market. I'm anxious all the time. And you now you have this software that is actually providing not only superior financial performance, but also the lack of stress, which I believe is ultimately very more important.
Extremely important.
It's gonna make for a healthier lifestyle.
It helps our relationship.
That would be a whole. That can really take up a whole other video.
Yeah.
How
why are you upset? Nice stock market.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and
my money's going down, of course.
the stress factor, that's huge. If you could just eliminate that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's worth it.
I think I did a little bit of digging, and I think like more than half of divorces have financial disputes or financial problems as one of the top 3 causes. More than half. So it's like
you can save your marriage.
It can
another addition, another positive addition.
This can. I mean, I don't want to say that this is the end all be all solution, but it has. It can really permeate a lot of different aspects of life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
This kid that committed suicide. If he had just if he had talked to us first a little bit and understood what the risks of options are. Maybe he wouldn't have traded $16,000 worth of options. Maybe he could have split that, put 10 grand in the safe zone, and then put just $6,000 for play money, something like that. Splitting it up. That's what I would have actually told him would be the smart way to play it. Not go all in on the riskiest vehicle that there is in the stock market when you don't know really how the stock market even really works.
Right.
So
and just as a disclaimer, you're not a financial advisor.
No.
So
nor will I ever
He has never told us do this or trade this or trade that, and
Mm-hmm.
yet you've been a huge guidance in our trading.
Yeah. Definitely.
I remember when when we were in the beginning of the COVID pandemic, you were like, "Oh man, should I just preemptively pull out of the iFlip portfolio now?" Or I remember you said that, and so I know what you mean. Like he has that kind of risk palette, right?
Yeah.
I totally understand that. I think a lot of people out there can relate. Like, oh, should I? And that you want to mess with the software. The challenge. Do you remember what I said? But was like. Why that could be a potential issue?
No.
I know to put it on the spot, but
I can't remember.
The challenge with doing that, even though you might be right, you might catch the drop even earlier.
Yes, now I remember. Yes, we can catch the drop. So like if we pull out, all right, we can potentially miss the full drop. But how do you know when to get back in?
That's what it was. That's
you
what
might
exactly
miss.
Said,
Like there's no way of telling.
There's no way of telling. That's what he had said.
And that's so that's
you can't predict what's going to happen.
Yeah. And if you try to, and that's the dilemma as traders that we face, because it's a decision, right? It's a risk. And that right there is the most stressful decision you're gonna make, right? Because as a trader, right? And if you're trying to avoid stress, then it's just better like, all right, I trust the software. Let's just let it time its thing. Because we refer to it, me and my trader friends, we call it catching a falling knife. Right? And it's a very dangerous kind of thing to try and time the bottom and then get the maximum amount of recovery from the bottom, right? And the software does a pretty good job of approximating that, right? It missed it by a couple of days, maybe almost a week, but it's like, all right, it was close enough.
We were clear on that. Cause we didn't get like completely, like we were never like, there were never any claims that this will completely not.
Like I was watching
You're not ever gonna lose anything with this.
Yeah.
It's just you're gonna lose a lot less.
Yeah, and that's the
and I'm okay with that because I would have been more skeptic. Who am not a skeptic, would have been a skeptic then if you would promise me that this is totally like gonna save every single penny and you're gonna just skip all the dips. Yeah. Then I would have been like, well, you know, what kind of magic trick is this? You know, like
magic trick.
Yeah, it's like
it is a
magic trick. So that actually kept me more. Yeah, like I'm sane.
Yes, absolutely. No,
this, you know.
I'm totally with. I love that you said magic trick. That's funny. I'm gonna use that. Yes, totally. Because the thing is, like, it might have. It didn't do it perfectly, but it did it close enough without you having to worry about it.
Yeah.
Right.
That's really the value. So it's like you can focus on your coffee business. You can focus on not worrying, not stressing about like, oh, the news, stock market is crashing. CNBC says sell, sell, sell. It's the end of the world.
And you have to watch everything the president's saying because that like also affects
Trump tweets.
Like, and follow all
There's actually
stuff.
groups out there that are Trump tweet traders that are specifically because Yeah,
well, that makes sense, actually.
He's very, what he says is very tradable.
Yeah.
So, and he knows it, and I think he kind of does it on purpose sometimes.
He plays in it for himself.
Yeah. I think he does.
It makes sense.
When he's like talking shit about China, I feel like part of it is, you know, he like I'll just point it to you like this. He would talk shit about China a lot, you know, pre-COVID with the trade wars and whatnot, and then the market kind of got immune to his Trump tweets, right? Because they're like, whatever, like he's just at it again. You cry wolf enough that they're not gonna believe you anymore, right?
Yes.
And so it started to not really affect the market anymore, and then he stopped, right? So I'm just connecting the dots here, you know, like just the sequence of events.
Leave it up to you to figure that one out. But yeah, it does make sense.
Well, I mean,
I can see it.
Yeah,
I can see
absolutely.
it. I can see it.
I mean, I not only do I trade with iFlip, where my big retirement savings is, but I also day trade and swing trade manually as well. So I'm paying attention to that. iFlip is way better than I am in terms of performance. That's why I give it a lot more money. But I am trading leverage, kind of like what that what the kid was doing in Robinhood. So I have the potential to make riskier kind of bets during like in the short term, and but I only do that under the safety blanket of having more money in retirement accounts, long-term investments. So that's what allows me to take on that kind of risk and want to get better and hone in my craft. Right, that's just my thing on the side. But yeah, I mean I use the analogy of it being a seatbelt, right? And so like when you get into a car accident, if you have seatbelts and you have airbags, it sucks, but you're alive.
Yeah.
Right, and you get to walk away from the crash with minimal damage, and you get to go on about your life, and that's what our portfolios have all been able to do. And we'll talk about your mom's portfolio as well. I guess sooner rather than later.
She had taken the crash.
Yeah, we don't want to wait for the next.
I now have to wait for her to level out.
Okay.
Well, that's what we're waiting on.
Over here, up. Whatever percentage, she's got to wait, like I'm sure a lot of people out there are doing, to at least level out and then
jump out.
I don't know if that's like you don't have to wait.
I don't want to wait long. No, it's like it's got to be like ASAP.
Yeah,
because it's already almost there. So like we're ready. Yeah. I don't want to wait for another disaster.
She's still recovering from 2018.
Now I feel bad.
Oh, is she?
She's still in the 2018 crash. So now she's had the COVID one too. So.
But it's harder to get
She already lost the
boomers.
18 one.
It's mentally it's harder to say let's sell when you're down and hurt and be like let's move it over here. But I did have a couple of clients who did that, And they were able, and iFlip was able to bounce them back, from the bottom, a little bit better than what they would have before. I had a couple of people, remember from the cruise and stuff.
Yeah.
So she was like, I know you told me about this, on the cruise before the crash happened.
Yeah.
We all went to a cruise together back in January. That's for context. And she was like, you know what? Let me just. I'm really interested, but let me just split my retirement account. I think like there was, take about half the money and put it in iFlip, and then take about half and leave it where it is, just to kind of compare. Right, for her own peace of mind. And I only want people to do what they're comfortable with. Yeah. And that's what she was comfortable with, to take it out for a test drive, compare. And just a few weeks ago, she's like, yeah, I want to move the rest over. Who do I talk to about that? Because it had bounced back better. So it's like there's never really a bad.
Well, I'm glad I'm hearing
time.
this, because I was under that kind of impression.
It is emotionally difficult to be like, can't we wait till I break even before we make a move? There is that emotional aspect of it, but mathematically, it doesn't. You don't have to wait for that. Actually, So if that makes her feel comfortable, you can split it, right?
Yeah.
Or you can move all of it, move a portion of it, right? There's. All of those options are available now, and we're better at handling rollovers than we ever were before.
This is a good example of what people would get from you.
Well, there you go. The advice.
Oh, okay.
Rather than just going on, and looking at the software.
Nixie was planning to wait.
Yeah.
She wasn't planning to do anything.
This was not scripted, by the way.
Yeah, this is very... Mukbangs are not scripted. That's the requirement.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be unscripted.
This is all, I think...
So we'll talk offline, when we're not recording and stuff. There's never really like a bad time.
Okay.
Necessarily, because the AI will adjust itself to whatever the climate is at that given moment. So it'll perform differently than it for her as it did for you, right? Because it's customized. It's like a learning kind of software.
Yeah.
So like for you, it's like, I already have a lot more games to work with. I'll give it a little bit more wiggle room. For her, like she's just starting, maybe not as much wiggle room. Like the AI will know the difference.
Got it.
In things, in situations like that. So So I mean, thanks for having me. This was great coffee. This is awesome pretzel snacks. This is very good. This is like addicting.
It is
addicting. That is.
It's so good. It's bad.
It's so good. It's bad.
Bad for you.
Yeah. And this is the kind of conversation that we have on a pretty regular basis, even throughout COVID.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you want to come and hang out with us, make sure you follow us on our individual Facebook pages and Instagram pages. Also, make sure you hit subscribe on YouTube and hit the notification bell for more content just like this. Everybody have a fantastic weekend, and stay tuned for the next video from YouTube.